Welcome everyone. In this session we're going to see task 1 and task 2, that is how to create the contact. Now when we say the contact, we mean either the supplier or the customer. So for this reason we have to make the contact. So first we have to create how many suppliers we have and how many customer we have. So you have to create their contact in order to raise the invoice or in order to raise the bills. So if I like to raise the bills for one supplier, or if I like to raise an invoice against one customer, or if I want to issue a credit note, or if I like to allocate the credit note against the bills, I have to create the contact or their detail first. So let's have a look what we have here. On the contact we can see it says business will sell their goods and service to a variety of different customers. In order to keep a record of all of the transaction involving each customer, a separate account will be created for each. Together all of these accounts will form the sales ledger. Sales ledger represent the credit customer. All sales made to that customer, credit note issued, cash and check received, and any discount allowed will be posted to the relevant customer. That's on the sales ledger account. So we are able to see how much money that customer owe us any given time. So if we keep our record up to date, anytime we will be able to see how much we're expecting from this credit customer. The same process is true of purchase and the suppliers. The same thing we do for the supplier as well. Then we have there are no need to set up this contact before invoices are created against them in the ledger. Zero will create a basic contact for this customer and supplier once the invoice have been created. As the business has been trading prior to using the zero, there are contact records that we need to add now. So basically there are two ways we can add the contact. For example, let's say you already have some supplier or you already have some customer, you can create them in advance. Or if you think no, I'm going to create them when I'm going to issue an invoice or when I'm going to receive the bill, you can do that time. So there is no need you have to create all of this advance. But for this example, we already have some supplier and customer from the previous period, because prior period or before we used to use the spreadsheet, not the accounting software, and from now we decided to use the accounting software. So we have some opening balance from the previous period. So that's why we have to create the contact now. How we create the contact? They say to find the contact, choose the contact drop down menu from the top navigator bar, select all contact. So we have to see how to add the contact, and to add a contact record, select add contact and create this contact. Now they are saying to create a contact you have to add this information. So you have to have this information, otherwise you will not be able to create a contact. So the name of the contact, then account number, postal address, full telephone detail, VAT registration number, default, and the bill due date. This is the most important one. So sales invoice due dates and the bills due dates. So after how many days the invoice will be due. Now normally if we receive the invoice from a supplier within 30 days by default the invoice is due, but it is possible maybe on the invoice is written 14 days. So you have to see what type of terms and condition or what type of credit allowance you have with your supplier and how many days you allow to your credit customer. So depends on the customer or based on the supplier, you have to choose the dates when you create the contact. So it's very important to set up individual deadline for individual customer and the supplier. Now we can see we have two things here. The first, we have to create some customer. So the action 1, we can see here they said create some customers. Enter the following customer, contact and account code. So every single customer we're going to create the name, for example GIFL recruitment, and we have a code GIF001. Sometimes the customer code or the supplier code is useful because this is the way you can find the customer or supplier quickly. Also, if you have the customer or the supplier with the same name, you can identify to whom you are talking about, so you're not going to send the wrong invoice to the wrong person. Then after that you have to enter the address and invoice due date 30 days after the invoice date. So this one you have to select. You have to tell the 0 every time if I send an invoice to this customer GIFL, I'm going to raise the invoice after the 30 days. So invoice will be due 30 days from the invoice date. So if the invoice date is 1st of January, the invoice will be due 30th of January. Then we're going to make another customer, that is Happy Engineering Limited, and the address, invoice date 30 days after the invoice date. And final one, we have a Pericar. So Pericar, the address and the invoice date. This time from the Pericar, the invoice is due 45 days after the invoice date. So from the date of the invoice is due after 45 days. So this is for our customer. The same way we're going to create the supplier. So enter the following supplier. We're going to create this code for the supplier. We have Fabric Delight, that's my code, address, and I'm going to pay the bill after 60 days from the invoice date. So from the bill date, the bill I'm going to receive from the Fabric Delight, from that day I'm going to pay the bill within 60 days. So if I set up all of this in the software, as soon as I enter any bill, the software know when it will be due. So software will automatically give you the due date. So if you just enter the bill date or the invoice date, software will tell you this is due after this many days. Then you have QC exclusive, that's the code, address, and the bills is due 30 days after the bill date. Then you have a total yield, the address, and bill is due 30 days after the bill date. So all of this thing is I'm creating because I have this information from the previous period. As I'm using 0, just like from the June 2020, before that I use everything on the spreadsheet. And this customer and supplier already have, and some balance I'm expecting from the supplier, and some balances I have to I will get from my customer. That's the reason I'm creating their contract. I have some information here. They said this contract had outstanding bill or invoice dated prior to 1st of June 2020. So before 1st of June 2020, this bill is outstanding. So when I'm going to start using the accounting software, I have to input this as opening balance. When the Grace Office Store converted to 0, it is important to add these bills and invoices to ensure that reports are correct. There will be a check pro forma in the tax 3, so you're going to check is it correct or not. But obviously, like, this is because I am not asking the wrong amount of money or less amount of money. So obviously all of this will give me the correct balance, how much is coming from the previous period. So let's have a look on the software, how can I create all of this contact, the customer and the supplier. Now on the software we can see there are few ways we can do this. For the first we can click the contact, and we can click, if I want to create a customer, I can click the customer. If I like to create a supplier, I can click the supplier. Or if I click on the all contact, it will show me how many contact I have. That means all the supplier and all the customer I can see from here. Now of course there is a lot of information I already entered here, depends because of this organization, but obviously we can see it what we need from here. Now let's have a look other way. So you can see on the right corner there is a plus sign. This one is the quickest way to enter the bill or invoice or anything or add contact. So if you see here we have a contact. If you click here, from there you will be able to add contact as well. So the plus one will give you easy access. So if you like to do the work really quick, it's better to always use the plus sign and go whenever like that is like convenient for you. It's the shortcut to go the same way. Alright, so from here if you click add contact, you will be able to add the contact. Now if you add contact, the information will be same for the supplier and for the customer, for the both. So you're going to write the contact name here and the primary person and the last name, email address, then address, then the postal address, everything, the VAT detail, all of these things you're going to write. But for this purpose, for this question purpose, for this example, all you need to write the name and the code number, and obviously after we're going to write the date. Now if it is invoice, if it is a customer, we're going to write invoice date, let's say like 45 days. We can choose which one, like after the date of the invoice. Or if it is a customer, then we choose the bill date. So it said I'm going to pay the bill after this many date. Let's have a look one that we already created for our customer or supplier. Let's choose one of the customer or supplier contact that we already have. Let's say we choose this one, Gaffel recruitment. Let's open this one and let's have a look who is this person and how can we edit. So this one already have a lot of transaction we did, but we want to see can we edit that. If I like to change anything, I can always edit that. So you see Gaffel requirement recruitment, this one we have the first person who is my customer. The reason I can see he's my customer because invoice date is due 30 days. So what I did here, we need to write the contact name the way this one said here. You can see the first one, Gaffel recruitment, the address and the invoice due 30 days after the invoice date. So you can see here exactly same thing, contact name and the address, and the invoice is due 30 days after the invoice date. So you're following that. That's how we can create the contact. So obviously that's how exactly we can make our supplier as well. So you can see here Fabric Delight, this is my supplier. So let's open the Fabric Delight and let's have a look what information we have there. So if we go back to the contact, and obviously from there we'll be able to see our Fabric Delight as well. So all the customer, all the supplier accounts we have created, we're going to see it from the all contact. So as soon as you can see here, Gaffel recruitment, you click here, and if I like to see the detail about this supplier, I'll be able to see it by clicking the edit option here, and that will take me to the contact page. If I like to change the name, if I like to change the bill date, everything I'll be able to do from here. So I can see the contact name, we have Gaffel recruitment, and then we have the address. If I like to put the web address, everything I can do. And after that I can see it is the invoice date, 30 days after the invoice date. So all of this we can see from here. So we have a Gaffel, we opened the Gaffel before, isn't it? So you want to see the other one, the supplier one, that is Fabric Delight. Let's have a look the Fabric Delight. Now this one is not very difficult. Even you don't have to make it if you never issued an invoice or never receive any bill. The reason we're creating in advance because we have some opening balance for these people. So let's have a look the Fabric Delight, and once it is open, that is my supplier Fabric Delight, and we will be clicking here the edit, and the edit will take me to the contact page where I'll be able to edit the information. For example, the contact name Fabric Delight with the code number and the address, and after that on the bottom I can see it's a bill. It's a bill, then bills is due 60 days after the bill date, and you can see here exactly 60 days after the bill date. So that's how we can create my customer and the supplier. So this is the first step, how to create the customer account and the supplier account on the zero. On the next section, you're going to see how to raise invoice and how to raise the bills and all of this.